Buddy, welcome to the Heart Board Project Oversight Committee meeting. It is Friday, June 20th at approximately 8:08 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First, we have roll call vote. Chair is present. Anthony Alto.
Present.
Lisa Baker.
Present.
Chris Moylan is excused. Ed Sniffen is excused. Art Tolentino.
Present.
Thanks, Art. We have Art online. Robert Yu.
Here.
Thanks, Robert. And we also have Natalie Iwasa online, as well as Lori Kahikina dialing in remotely. Okay, with that said, let's move on to item agenda number 2, public testimony on all agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to testify on any of the agenda items? Seeing none, let's move on to item number 3, review of the March 2025 and April 2025 monthly progress report. Vance? Morning, guys. When you're ready. And again, I mean, you know, I know we have the March and the April, but if we can focus on the most current. That would be, unless there's something highlighted in the March that you guys feel the need to bring forward.
No, well, sorry, excuse me, Vance Suda, Heart Project Director. We'll go through as we do normally, just hit the overall key items. And again, I'm not going to read from the report. I'll give you kind of the latest and greatest in terms of where we are status-wise. So segment 2, you know, we're still shooting for the October 1st date to turn the system over to DTS. We're actually making really good progress in terms of testing. We're at 99% complete in terms of testing. We have trial run or trial operations scheduled to start early July. There are some items that we need to complete with the comm system before we start trial run. So we're trying to wrap that up in the next couple of weeks. There may be, you know, some items that may not be completed, and we'll have to determine whether or not that July timeframe will hold for trial run. But currently we are working through those items with the contractor Hitachi. In terms of the civil construction, you know, all that's completed. The contractor is still working on punch list items, getting some spare parts over to us and handed over. But they're pretty much done, you know, doing some landscaping maintenance that they need to establish before we can close them out. So just a few items lingering. Going back to trial run, so Hitachi is expecting to start running trains during the daytime in segment 2 as early as next week. So if you're out there, you know, late afternoon, about 3 p.m., they'll run trains in segment 2. What they're going to do is they're going to run from Pearl Harbor to Middle Street in what's called a pinch loop. So, you know, 1 or 2 trains running in that segment, just going in circles from Pearl Harbor to Middle Street Station, just to get some mileage out there and some testing done to get ready for trial operations and then eventually system demonstration. If schedule holds and we start trial operations early July, by the end of July we should be complete with trial operations. There's roughly 25 to 30 test case scenarios that they run, and these are all you know, it ranges from normal operation scenario where you open up the system, turn on all the stations, dispatch all the trains, to emergency cases or contingency cases, very similar to what we did with segment 1. But a lot less test cases. Segment 1, we had 144 test cases. So that if schedule holds, that'll start July. What passengers can expect is, you know, the system will turn on about 4 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't mean that passengers can ride. They'll still stay with the same time frame of what operations is currently for segment 1. And then once, you know, the system is open to passengers can get on East Kapolei or any of the segment 1 stations. The trains will run through segment 1 at Aloha Stadium. All the passengers will need to disembark, and then the train will continue on into segment 2. It'll do its run through segment 2 as if segment 2 is in service, and then come back to Aloha Stadium. And at that point, passengers can get back on and ride through segment 1. So that's basically, or the major change that passengers will see and will have to adapt to. Right now, it does run to Aloha Stadium. Passengers do get off at Aloha Stadium, but you're going to see the trains continue on into segment 2. And then end of July system demonstration will start, and just to remind everyone, that's the period where Hitachi runs the system as if it was in service. They need to meet a 30-day rolling average of 98.5%. They've been doing really well in segment 1, with the system running 99.5, 99.4%, which is extremely high for the system. But it'll be a little more complex here because they'll have to calculate the availability for the entire alignment, segment 1 and 2, as well as calculate for segment 1 to maintain revenue service on segment 1. So a little more complex than what we had in segment 1, where we had free will of testing whenever we wanted. No passengers on the system. Now we'll have passengers on the system. Partial system will be in revenue service, partial will be in testing. So a little complex, but all the entities, all the stakeholders, DTS, HART, Hitachi, we're all working together to get that going and ensure that the public is aware of what's to come. CCR3 resurfacing is ongoing. I don't know if you had a chance to go out to Nimitz in the eastbound direction. Majority of those lanes are paved. No more steel plates, no more potholes. Very nice, clean surface, and they'll continue resurfacing for the next couple of weeks. They continue with AIS trench work. They've got one more trench that they're looking to complete in the next couple of weeks. Looking to close out that contract in Q3 of this year, July, end of July timeframe. CCR4, microtunnel jacking pits, those are all being backfilled. They continue with HECO infrastructure installation, working with HECO to get infrastructure accepted. So after all the duct banks, conduit, manholes go in the ground, they're all completed. HECO needs to come out and do a pre-final inspection, basically witness mandrel test to make sure all the conduits are clear, make sure the manholes meet all the requirements, ensure all the grounding tests are completed to ensure safety in the manholes. Once that's completed, then the 4E contractor will follow on. So all of that infrastructure between Middle Street and Koho Street is ongoing. They also have drainage installation ongoing between Middle Street and Puahale Road. 4E contract, 46 kV racking and manholes and cabling is ongoing. This is between Middle Street and Mokuea Street. So as I mentioned, as the manholes get accepted by HECO, then the 4E contractor goes in and puts in all the rackings, basically to hold all the cables in the manholes, and then starts pulling all the cables through those manholes. 138 kV, if we recall the last time we reported, we found issues with the foundations for those 138 kV poles. We continue to work with HECO, their consultants, our contractor, our engineer of record to put together a repair plan. We've been going back and forth as to opinions on what the repair plan should be. I think we are we are making progress in terms of what that plan is going to shape out to be, and hopefully we can start repairs in the next few weeks. With that, once those are repaired, the infrastructure, everything underground, manholes, duct banks, we're looking, if all goes well with those foundations, to start cabling, in the end of July timeframe. So a lot of pressure there to get a lot of those foundations fixed and completed in preparation for the cable pulling. CCGS. We continue to work with the contractor on developing designs. They continue with geotechnical borings to support those designs. Right now, I think one of the hot topics is the Chinatown station. They've got definitive design, which is 30% designs. Next week, Thursday, the 26th, is when we'll have our neighborhood workshop for the Chinatown station design. And this is an opportunity for the neighborhood, the public, stakeholders to come out and provide input to the stations, mainly for the look and feel, fit and finish of the station. So things like landscaping, the color of the station, some of the architectural features, that help to support the surrounding area. Chinatown being a historical district or historical area, especially the station next to Ho'olau Market. We want to make sure that the stations don't cause any conflict with those historical properties. So looking for the public's input. That is next week, Thursday. Information is needed. You can find it on our website about time, place, and how things will go for that workshop. The other stations are progressing as well with definitive design. So the next workshop after Chinatown will include a couple of stations. We're expecting Kalihi and Kapalama Station towards end of July, August timeframe for that workshop. And then follow on with Evole and Civic Center Station. Baseline schedule is still being coordinated or worked together with our team and Tutor to get a baseline schedule officially submitted and accepted no later than October. And with that, they're quickly moving towards doing the first drill shaft. I think we talked about that previously. In the July, August timeframe is what we're expecting them to start with their first drill shaft. They're going to move from Evole Station area is where that first drill shaft is going to be, moving eastward towards Nimitz and then Halekauwila. And then towards the end of the year, November, December timeframe is when we'll expect to see the first column come out of the ground. So very exciting time in terms of what's going on this year, especially the October, November, December timeframe with segment 2 opening, and then the physical work coming out of the ground for CCGS. That's all I have. I'll stop there for questions.
Members, any questions? Anthony?
Just one on the CCUR4 and the foundations. I think last time you said that there was potential impact to the critical path, and I'm just wondering, is that still the case, and what how bad is that concern?
Definitely, and without knowing the formal fix yet, we have not evaluated how much that has impacted the critical paths, but definitely an impact. I don't know, Corey, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, we're working with the 4E contractor to see how resequencing can maybe mitigate some of the impact as these foundations are still getting approved for the repair plans, and we get those repair plans completed. So we don't have a firm answer yet, but we're working with HMS and we're trying to see how we can mitigate any impact.
The other thing is, in recent years, when we've run into problems like this, we've focused on getting the fix done first and then working out the blame and who pays for it later. Is that the model we're following here too?
Yes.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Robert, Lisa, Natalie, Bart? Nope. Okay, just one quick one on the report, high risk AGS segment 2 access delays. Is that, can you guys elaborate on that? Is there?
Are you referring to the risk register on towards the end of the report?
What is this, page 42? DBOM 920, access delays.
Yeah, that's the risk we are holding for the settlement for the claim with Core Systems. That's related to the access delays from segment 1 and 2. So those are being finalized, we're hoping, but yeah, that's what that is. We're holding it until that negotiation is completed.
Yeah, the DBOM 920 is the Hitachi contract, so
Yeah.
all the access or the delays from segment 2 in their contract to currently where we are with October opening.
Okay, so is that something, in a nutshell, is that something that we need to be concerned about at this point, or is it being?
Yeah, and previously we talked through, and trying to pick my words carefully here, with being a claim, we did negotiate with Hitachi, and we were in discussions with Hitachi on that claim, and I think possibly next month we can give the board an update as to where we stand on that claim and agendize it for the full board.
Okay.
We do have some updates that we want to share. I know Lori sent out some information, but I think presenting it to the board next month.
Could this impact the opening?
No.
No.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Any other questions from anybody? Seeing none, why don't we move on to agenda item number 4, Project Management Oversight Contractor Report. Again, for March and April of 2025, but give us the most current update. I don't know, Vance, Corey, who's gonna take this one?
Yeah, so if you go to page, yeah, that's perfect, Chad. So the first item is that Hitachi claim, PMOC just identifying the claim itself and the cost of the claim of being in excess of $120 million, the impact to the overall project. Kind of talked through some of that already. We'll provide a further update in the full board next month, put it on the agenda. We've been discussing in the past on negotiations and how that discussion has been going. So they're just highlighting that here. The next item, project revenue growth. This was a concern that the collections were lower than the forecast. I'm not going to go too much into that. I think Mike will cover the cash flow and provide kind of an update on that portion. But they were just identifying that we need to keep an eye on the collections and what was projected and if there was any concerns there. The last item, I think it's the last item, is overall CCGS, being that we have the CCUR 4 4E contractor really being the critical path to getting CCGS started on Dillingham. Some of it talks through, the work that's ongoing with CCUR 3 and CCUR 4, some of the 138 kV foundations that I mentioned earlier, and just monitoring, that schedule, being how closely those schedules intertwine with each other, and the CCGS overall schedule. We'll take questions.
Members, questions?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Natalie.
Thank you, Vance, for your report. In section 1.3 on the Hitachi claim, it reports that there's a potential additional cost of $30 million. And I realize you just said you're going to give the full board an update, and some of this is confidential. But I'm sure that the media is going to be asking about this. So can you, share something in general for the public on this item?
Yes, I'll keep it very high level. So there was a line item in the negotiation that Hitachi needed to provide justification for a dollar amount. And it's, backup documentation that shows how they were impacted by the delay. And that's where that additional up to 30 million is where that claim can end up.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question. So it also indicates that there was formal mediation that didn't result in a settlement. And I'm just wondering, so did Hart pay for a negotiator?
Yes, it's a shared cost between Hitachi and Hart for the
Okay.
mediator.
Okay, my understanding is that's how it typically works. Do you remember how much that was? Hart's share?
Do you recall? I want to say it was around 40,000, which was Hart's share, but we can double check that number.
Okay. And then the last thing, so if the mediation failed, then am I correct in assuming that this current settlement is the work of Lori and her team trying to make things work out for the best of Hart? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lori. That's it, Chair.
Thanks, Natalie. Anybody else have any questions? And I do want to note the presence of Roger Morton. Thanks, Roger. Any other questions for any other members? Seeing none, if I just have one, on some of these, well, it appears, potential costs, additional costs, and potential lower revenues. I mean, do we have contingency plans for addressing some of these potentials? And if you could just elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so the risk identified, like the Hitachi claim, that is being considered in our current EAC. So we've already accounted for that risk in our contingencies now. The lower growth rate, that's kind of more related to the ending cash balance. I know we've talked about that the last several months. So we're balancing that, making sure our project costs maintain where it's supposed to be, and then managing the forecast of the revenues. So that's where you'll see that impact with the growth, but like I said, I think Mike will have more to that and kind of understanding the projections.
Okay, so from a project oversight perspective, is there anything that we may need to be concerned about as far as revenue at this point?
I don't believe so, and I think Mike can probably, when he does the cash flows, can provide.
I think we're gonna go into that in the next finance committee, but if it's better that we discuss it at that point, then I can leave it at that.
Yeah, and I don't think there is any concern at this point in time.
Okay. All right. Roger, do you have any? I know you just popped in, but.
I'm not on the committee.
Okay. Do you have anything that you'd like to ask anyway?
No.
You're good? Okay. All right. If there are no other questions from any other members, appreciate it. Vance, Corey. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, summary of committee member requests made during June 20th. So I don't believe there are any requests. Do we have any requests from any members to follow up on? Natalie, Art?
I
Lisa?
guess the only follow-up would be on that cost, but if they estimate 40,000, I'm good with that.
The cost and the cost share for the mediation? Natalie?
Yes.
Okay. Vance, you guys got that?
Yeah, we'll verify.
Can you also, I mean, I don't know, but can you also, as a, in addition to a dollar amount, can you maybe provide a percentage? Or, yeah,
The percentage of the cost.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, if there are no other, are there any, at this point, I noticed that there was another person that joined us online. Are there any testimony online or in the audience on any of the agenda items that we have listed on the POC agenda before we move on to adjournment? Seeing none? Okay, if there's no other further business, this POC meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Right on time.
Good morning. It's 8:32 a.m. and going to call the Finance Committee to order. Lisa Baker,
Present.
Kika Bukowski,
Present.
J. Roger Morton,
Present.
Arthur Tolentino.
Present.
Thank you. And I'm Robert Yu, and I am here. Moving to item number 2, are there any public testimony? Oh, I'm sorry. I want to recognize now.
Yeah, good morning. We can't hear, or I can't hear you if you're saying something.
And I think that's all the board members on the line, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Anthony Alto is also here. I'm trying to navigate. My phone keeps shutting off on me. Okay, apologize for the delay. Item number 2, public testimony on all agenda items. Are there any public testimony in person or online? Okay, hearing none, and we're going to move on to the next agenda item, May cash flow report. And someone is supposed to be here.
Chair and committee members. Mike O'Keefe, Deputy Executive Director. So this is the updated cash flow report for the end of the month of May 2025. I don't know, if there's anything you want us to review in particular, but Corey and I are happy to answer any questions.
So this is the annual report. Are you going to present the monthly one or just the annual?
Third page.
The quarterly.
Oh.
So if we scroll down, I think oh, okay, there it is.
Hard to see.
Yeah. Monthly's on the screen now. Mhm.
So Mike, Corey, that's the presentation? Just questions or? Oh, I'm not sure what the plan is for y'all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you folks have the Delta sheet? That's usually the easiest on what to present to the board. What has changed from last month? Do you folks have that Delta sheet?
So Lori, that wasn't posted.
No, it's not posted, but that's usually what we present to the board so that they understand what has changed.
Is that on the server?
And usually only significant, if it's Manini dollars, then it's the significant changes.
No, we don't have that.
Yeah, sorry, I think, Lori, I don't think we created it for this month, so we don't have it right now.
Are you sure? I think I have it. Hold on. Let me go check.
I have a quick.
Okay,
While
in
we're
the
waiting.
meantime, if any members have any questions, go ahead, Kika.
Yeah, so just to kind of follow up on from the POC committee on some of the potential, or, I guess lower than anticipated revenue, can you guys kind of expand on some of that?
Yeah, so for the current fiscal year 25, we are tracking below our projections for GET and TAT specifically. I think about 10 million below projections for the fiscal year. If you look at the larger trend though, for the past several years, where we kind of go up above the projection, below the projection, so we're very close to the projections and the numbers that we have in our long range financial plan. And while we have complete financial data through the third quarter of the current fiscal year. We'll have complete fourth quarter data in August, I believe. We do have 1 month's worth of Q4 data for the current fiscal year, and it is promising. So year over year, that 1 month we have is April. So year over year, April 2024 to April 2025, combined GET, TAT were up a little over 11%. So we've made a good recovery to start the first month of the last quarter of the fiscal year. I'll also add too that the projected revenue for the fourth quarter for the current fiscal year actually goes down in our financial plan. So that's the projection, not the actual. So we're trending in the right direction in terms of our actual revenues are going up and then the projection is going down. So there's no promises at this point, but there's a very strong indication that we'll be above, we'll have fully recovered by the end of the quarter, but that's only, again, based on 1 month's worth of data. So that gets back to why, I briefly kind of indicated that, we're not concerned at this point for state revenue for the project.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions from members?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, thank you. So actually going back to the annual report, and I don't know why I didn't notice this sooner, but the actual, I'm sorry, the projected GET for the last year, fiscal year 2031, is about 386 million. And if you recall, that's when, that's the year when it's only half a year. That's the end of the act is December, so it's half a fiscal year. That projected revenue of 386 million is higher than the actual amount that was received last fiscal year. So I was just wondering, how did you folks determine that amount? It seems like it should be half.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. So in our financial modeling, we project, of course, through the end of the project, recovery amounts for both GET and TAT. For GET, we incorporate a year-over-year increase of about 4.8%. For TAT, that increase, that annual year-over-year increase is 8.1%. So if you look at between fiscal year 2024 and the end of the sunset of the state GET and TAT, even though that's the year in which the GET and the TAT sunsets, which is halfway through fiscal year 31, that 6 years of compounding escalation, essentially makes up the difference of the between the recovery that we're seeing currently and the recovery that we'll see 5 to 6 years from now. Hopefully that was clear.
So Michael, if you don't mind, I'll just add to what you just said, Natalie. So even though the GET and TAT sunsets in December 2031, because we are collecting GET and TAT on a cash basis, so there's a quarter delay. So essentially what you're almost looking at is a little bit more than 6 months of money, because it's on a cash basis, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you. I understand that. So even if it's only, I mean, typically if the legislature gets their act correct and they put the ceiling where it should be, theoretically, that last payment should be coming in January. So I still don't understand why it's more than a full year. I mean, if anything, based on what you're telling us, is that it should be 3/4. Right?
Yeah, and maybe what I can do for the next meeting is provide a better breakdown of how our projection is escalated over the 5 to 6 years. But when you take 2024 revenue, for example, and then you add 4.8% to that annually every year between 2024 and 2031, that's why even just a half a year's revenue in 2031 equals to almost or approximately a full year's worth of revenue in 2024.
Okay. You know what? I do see it is lower than fiscal year 2030. So, yeah, maybe a little background information on that but that might make sense.
Sure.
I did have one other question.
Go ahead now.
Chair. So that would explain the TAT as well then, because the process would be the same.
Exactly.
With respect to, so GT decreased about 3.5 million overall in this annual plan. So so I was looking at April versus May. I think that was where it came from. Is this like a timing difference, or do you know what that's from?
I don't believe it was a timing difference. It was just below the projections that we have in our plan.
Okay. One more thing here. Okay, so I guess related to that, projected cash at June 2031 is about 11.5 million less than from the April report. So that's what you're saying you think is going to be made up with this next quarter. Is that correct? Or maybe not quite that full amount, but you're expecting it to be more on track. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Like I mentioned, the April information is promising. Year over year, April 24 to April 25, we're a little over 11% total increase between GET and TAT collections. So that's a good indication that the current quarter is off to a good start.
Okay, then I just wanted to note that you folks did add the little comment about the $4 million difference in the actual cash compared to the audit. So I wanted to thank you for that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I do want to recognize Joseph board member, who's also nice.
Maybe this is for you, Chair, because you have the experience, but Natalie said theoretically that we would get that last payment in January. It seems like the annual payment is usually the biggest payment that the state gets because it's the end of the calendar year. How long do businesses have to pay their taxes after the end of the year?
Well, I think for the purposes of our cash flow and to answer Natalie's question, I know Rick, maybe a year ago, presented the projected quarterly GET and TAT collections. If you could find his analysis and maybe just update it for the next Finance Committee meeting, then it would be good to show Natalie and the board how toward 2031 that it should have 3 quarters of GET collections. It would come in July of 2030, which is for the quarter before, and you would have, I think, another one in September in 2030, which is for the previous quarter. Then for January, you would have the last quarter of 2030. So while GET and TAT sunsets on December 2030, you're actually collecting 3 quarters of GET. And that makes up for, from the way beginning in 2007, that the first quarter is 1 quarter delay. So it's just a timing thing.
That was my point.
Yeah, right. So, usually, businesses file GET and stuff, the month after ends, right? But then showing that analysis, you would be able to show Natalie that you're actually collecting 3 payments in fiscal year 2031, even though the sunset is half of the fiscal year.
That's a good point.
So is that good, Natalie? Yeah, it will be very clear when Mike and Corey are able to show that analysis.
Yeah, I see. I guess I didn't really compare the numbers with the prior fiscal year. So when I consider that, fiscal year 2030 is about 448 million, it makes more sense that way. I was just looking at the, actuals for 2024, which that's where I...
Right. So if you take 75% of fiscal year 2030, which you just said is 400-something million, that would come pretty close to the 300-something million that you mentioned in 2031. So it's actually, you just times that by 75% is really what it is.
Yeah, but if they can get that spreadsheet that Rick had done, I think that would be helpful.
Yes.
I probably have it somewhere, but it would be helpful to have that again. Thank you.
Yep, no
Thanks,
problem.
Natalie. I do have one other question. So Richard Oshiro is the director. Is he on vacation, or that's why he's not here at the meeting?
No, Richard is here.
Oh.
Just filling in for him today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item for fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budget approval. Now, before we start, the Finance Committee approved the budget, I think back in December, to be submitted to the mayor's office for his review. So we already approved the operating budget. We could just review this budget for the purposes of this meeting. What we actually
Oh, Robert, we lost audio.
Yeah, sorry,
thank
it
you.
keeps turning
you.
off on me.
Thank you, thank you.
So maybe for the purpose of this meeting, just to make it a little quicker, is whether there were any changes from the budget that we submitted to the mayor and the city council, comparing that to what the city council ultimately approved. And if there are no changes, then we don't have to go through the budget. The board will go through the budget at the during the board meeting.
So you're good. Oh, sorry. So there were no changes, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, we're happy to talk about anything related to the budget, but it's the same version that was submitted to
Okay,
City
good.
Council.
So for both operating and capital, the
Yes.
budget amount is identical?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members? Natalie?
Yes, so just a comment. If I recall correctly, this budget does not include funding for an internal audit function. Is that correct?
That's correct. You could scroll through.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put on the record, I really think that we need to do that. If I recall correctly, we haven't had an internal audit committee meeting for a year. And, you know, part of that was due to the prior chair of that committee having some health issues. But we do have a new chair, and we still haven't had a meeting the last few months. So we still have about $4 billion to spend, and internal audit is a function of it. And I understand management's position is always a bit hesitant about that, regardless of the agency. And it's just a way to find inefficiencies or, potentially any kind of waste or abuse too. And I'm not making any accusations. It's just a good governance, best policy, best practices type of thing. So I just wanted to express my disappointment that that's not in the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Natalie. So I just want to be clear with the internal audit function. In the last two or three fiscal years, the board and HART, we did include $250,000 as for an internal audit budget. In fact, we still have $250,000 in our budget today, although it lapses on June 30th. Now, that being said, HART did go out for proposals to select an internal auditor and to conduct certain scopes of work that HART and the board deems essential and necessary. And the proposals came in much higher than what we anticipated. And at that time, I think both the board and HART decided that, well, it's not something we could afford at the moment. So we we terminated that proposal. But the 250,000 remain in the budget, in the HART budget, and like I said, it'll lapse on June 30th. Now, one of the options is if the board and HART decide to go out to bid again on the internal audit work, there's mechanisms that that the board and HART could use to reallocate money into the internal audit function should the board and HART wants to. So it's not like just because it's not in the budget, that doesn't mean that the board cannot approve after discussions with HART to reallocate money from one category to another. So Natalie, you know, maybe we could save this for the next finance committee meeting, that we could have a better discussion on whether the board and HART would want to do that, to reallocate some money from other expenditure categories to accommodate the internal audit work.
Okay, so if I may follow up with that, you know, there were two big problems with that RFP that went out. First of all, the HART board got bad information from the peer review report. They did not take into consideration some of the restrictions that were in the charter, and this came out last year. And then the RFP, the request itself the scope was way too huge. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that the amount that came in was way higher than what was expected, because what was included in there was just way too much. So yeah, I think that we should have a discussion on this, but I believe that it actually should come from the Internal Audit Committee. I think that some work would need to be done on the request itself, specifically on the scope. And then once that is done, then you can determine what the potential budget should be for that. Trying to put the budget first, in my opinion, is doing it in the wrong order, but I do appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Go ahead, Roger.
If we did have an internal audit function, which generally it's a good idea to have one, I totally agree on that, but in my experience, generally that's sort of tied up with some agency employee too. I'm not sure if you just outsource the whole thing, whether it's as effective than if you have an internal control type of group within the agency that works with your outside auditors. That would obviously be ideal. In this case, it would be a committee of board members that would be working with an outside auditor. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it depends how you want to set up the internal control process.
So that the staff here would probably be Richard and the rest of the accounting staff.
Okay, wait, I think we need to clarify what kind of audit are we talking about? So we have our own QA/QC team that does audits internally and to all of our consultants and contractors. We also do a financial audit every year that we present to you folks. And then we also do the audit with FTA, Roger, that you folks are a part of. It just depends what your definition of an audit is. And to Natalie's point, that scope that they put in there, that the board agreed to, was too extensive. And I also thought some of it was repetitive because some of it was, hold on, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, so some of it was repetitive to work that FTA and PMOC does and our own team does. So we need to, and so Natalie, I'm not opposed to audits. No. I just don't want to spend $1 million on something that what are we actually going to get out of it? So looking at fraud, like I always mention, we have avenues that people can report from within HART or externally to HART. To the city side, we do that financial audit every year. So it just depends what you folks are asking for and how much we're willing to spend on it.
Yes. So I'll just make a comment. So Lori, yes, the financial audit, and we do other audits, but the scope of financial audit is different than the scope
Correct.
of an internal audit, which
Correct.
is more specific and targeted and tailored to certain functions. Now, that being said, I know, Natalie's position with respect to internal audits, but I do want to say HART does, there are outside organizations that are auditing some of the work that HART does, like the
Correct.
state's DAGs auditors under Act 1 passed in 2017. All the invoices are reviewed
Yes,
by the
thank
DAG
you.
staff
Yes.
before it is approved and before it is eligible for reimbursement from the state. Now, the other organization that could perform some internal audit function is the city. The city has an internal audit function, right? So maybe that is a more efficient and effective way to target some of the processes that maybe, Natalie, you want to take a look at. And the city internal audit office is an independent body.
Yeah, and of course, there are other government audits as well, the single audit that HART would be part of. In August, there'll be a triennial audit to see whether there is compliance with federal law. There was and is periodically a full scope financial audit that the federal government does. So there are many other audits, and then as Lori pointed out too, there is the internal QA part, which almost gets into audits of projects or consultants, and but again, I think the idea of an internal audit is great. It's just a question of what outside we would do and how we would manage that. I do agree it should be managed by an internal audit committee, but I don't think, I'm just wondering how it would be staffed as well by HART.
Yeah, I think at this point, the best thing to do is maybe in the next finance committee meeting or before the next meeting, if Natalie has some time to sit down with the HART staff and tailor a process or target a process or an area of HART's internal control that you want to specifically look at, that would be a better start than just talk about internal audit in general. Because we're talking about internal audit in general, it encompasses just everything. So you really want to be more targeted toward what do you want to look at? What areas do you think has the most risk? So anyway, maybe between now and the next finance committee meeting, Natalie, you could sit with some of the HART staff and express what area are you really concerned about. And that, one is, then we could take a look whether there's a budget for that type of work, or Lori or someone from HART could talk to the city's internal auditor and say, look, we would like to take a look at this area. What is your audit planning schedule? Whether they even have time to do something like that or not.
Yeah, they have two groups in the city, though. They do have the independent of the administration and reports to the council. They also have the internal controls group as well, which typically expenditures and does perform audits from.
Yeah, so that would be something we could all talk about. Whether it's a city auditor or the internal audit group within the city department. I think they're part of Department of Budget and Fiscal Services.
So the city auditor did do a recent re-audit of us because they had a report that they did several years ago. And so they looked at it and they said that we fulfilled everything that we were supposed to. But that was maybe about a year or two ago that they did that re-audit.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Chair, I have a
Yeah, sure,
real
Kiko.
quick question regarding the budget, the operating and the budget that's going to, I guess, come before the full board. So if I understand it correctly, the Finance Committee previously approved the budget that went before the, as you mentioned, the
Yes.
City Council. Since then, there hasn't been any changes. So essentially, what's going to be before the board today is a budget that has been approved by the Finance Committee. Recommended budget.
Yes, the budget recommended by the Finance Committee.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we move to item.
Robert, we can't hear you.
Sorry, it turned off again. So we moved on to item number 5, summary of committee member requests made during the June 20th, 2025 meeting. And the only thing I could recall is Mike and his staff is going to provide the analysis of GET, TAT with actual numbers, up to the present and also projected numbers. And that analysis was done by quarter. So that would clarify the picture on how much money is collected in 2031. Any other things that I...
Chair, I mean, are we going to follow up with the request from Natalie and regarding the internal audit?
Oh, yeah, but that's not really... someone has to set up a meeting
Okay.
with Natalie and the Hart staff between now and the Finance Committee meeting, and we'll agendize it at the next meeting
So,
for
Robert,
discussion. Yes.
so I have a significant backlog at work right now, and then I'm going to be leaving for the mainland for a while for take care of my mom again. So if there's going to be a follow-up discussion, I think realistically, probably September.
Okay, yeah, sure. As long as there's a discussion. It could be September, October, November. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
And any other summary of items? Okay, hearing none, we move to the next. Oh, so do I have to call for public testimony? Okay, so I want to ask, are there any public testimonies from someone in person or online for the agenda items that we just went over? Okay, hearing none, we go to agenda item number 6, adjournment. If there are no objections, the Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Hart Board of Directors meeting. Today is Friday, June 20th. It is approximately 9:17. We'll call this meeting to order. And we'll start off with public testimony. Is there anyone in the public or online that would? Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call. Roll call. Well, Colleen Hanabusa, Chair Colleen Hanabusa is not present. Vice Chair, so in Colleen's absence, I'll be acting chair for today's meeting. I'm present. Anthony Alto.
Present.
Don Takeuchi Apuna is excused. Lisa Baker.
Present.
Natalie Iwasa.
Here.
Online, thank you. Jared Kawashima. Excused. Roger Morton.
Present.
Chris Moylan is excused. Joe O'Donnell. I see Joe online. Thank you, Joe. Ed Sniffen.
Present.
Thanks, Ed. Art Tolentino.
Present.
also online. And Robert Yu,
Present, Chair.
thank you. We also have online with us CEO, Executive Director Lori Kahikina, our Executive Officer Carolyn. We also have Aaron Munn and Krista Lunzer online with us as well. Okay.
Wait, excuse me. Did you say Executive Officer Carolyn?
She's not yet.
So not,
Is that what you
not-
said?
we do have Carolyn on with us. She is not yet an employee of Hart. So, but hello anyway, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you.
Future. Thank you for that correction. Okay. With that said, if there is any public testimony in person or online, is there anyone in the audience or online that wishes to provide testimony on any of the items on the agenda today? Anyone online? Chad? Nope. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to agenda item number 3, committee reports. Starting off with Government Affairs. I don't know if you have anything that you want to say, Anthony, or I know you didn't have any committee hearings this morning, but,
No, I don't have anything for you, Chair.
okay. It's on the agenda, so I'm just going to run down through it. Human Resources, again, Lisa, I know that we didn't have any committee meetings this morning, but is there anything that you want to share at this point?
Lisa asked me to just report on the May 23rd meeting, which was the board authorized us to authorize a salary range to negotiate with the executive officer candidate. They nominated me to conduct that negotiation, which I did, and I think I'm allowed to say that as a result of that, we did make an offer to Carolyn Ritterman, who's joining us online and awaiting the city's HR process to complete her employment. And that was it.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Next, Project Oversight Committee from June 20th, that's myself. We met this morning. Briefly, we reviewed the monthly progress reports as well as the PMOC reports. And one of the items for follow-up next meeting is for Hart to provide the cost share information that was requested by Natalie for the mediation. Is there anything that I'm missing? Anyone? If not, that's the report of the POC committee. Next, the June 20th Finance Committee meeting. Robert?
Yeah, Chair. The Finance Committee meeting met this morning. We went over financial statement of Hart, and there were no action items. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, move on to agenda item number 4, Executive Director and CEO's update. Lori?
Actually, I think Vance is in the room. Between Vance and Mike, they were going to do the updates for me. I have to leave in like 5 minutes to take my mom to the doctor's.
On hour 10, so it's got less than an hour.
And actually, Chair, do we have a risk of losing quorum because
Yeah,
we?
so,
Oh.
yeah, I'm sorry. You know what I want to do is I want to defer item number 4, maybe to later in the agenda. And if we could move on to some of the other agenda items that we'll need to take action on. So
Oh,
I
thank you,
apologize
Chair.
for that.
Thank you.
So if we can move on to agenda item number 5, fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budget approval. Vance, are you gonna do anything on this, or Mike?
Thanks, Vice Chair. I wasn't planning to. The budget is unchanged from what was presented to the board at City Council, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so for those of you on the board, this agenda item was presented at the Finance Committee meeting held earlier today. As was noted, we had previously, the Finance Committee had previously submitted or you know what, Robert, would you like to share where we're at with the budget?
I actually want to say,
Mike's gone off again.
not all board members are part of the finance committee. And when the finance committee approved the operating budget and capital budget, it did not go to the board for their approval. So I think from a board meeting standpoint, it would be appropriate for HART staff to go over what the finance committee approved with the entire board, because not all board members saw the budget.
Board,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll defer to the board, how you folks feel. I mean, I know, as Robert has stated, not everyone is a member of the finance committee. However, as far as I know, most of us attend all of the meetings. Is anyone have any desire to get a presentation? As far as timing goes, are you prepared to do a presentation today, or if we deferred this, is it going to affect the timing at all?
We cannot defer this because
Okay.
the fiscal year is July 1st.
Okay.
So Mike, maybe as simple as going through the pages and just show the board, how much was approved for salaries, how much was approved for current expenses, how much was approved for capital projects, and maybe just show the different category of expenditures that were approved. Just something simple.
can
I think
absolutely
it looks
do that.
kind of weird. We just approved something that some board members may not even have seen, right?
Understood, yeah, we have the presentation loaded on the screen, so we can go through it briefly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, again, this is the presentation that we gave to the board back in March, I believe, and also was presented to City Council. So what we're looking at on the first page, just high-level overview, the total proposed operating budget for fiscal year '26, about $175 million, and the CIP budget, about $794 million. This budget includes 47 positions, city staff positions at HART, projected to fill an additional 25 in the coming fiscal year. So I probably won't go over every line item, though I'll just cover the high points. I think that's helpful. So funding sources, as we know, GET, TAT are significant funding sources. You can see that we're also programmed to receive an additional $125 million in federal funding once we open segment 2 for service in October. Those are the big ones, and you can see they're just broken down visually in the pie chart to the right of that table. Total about 1.26 billion for the fiscal year. So this is our operating budget for '26. Again, about $175 million, which is an increase of about 26% over the current fiscal year. So a large portion of that is for debt service on our outstanding debt obligations, GO bond payments, principal and interest. And you can see the a more detailed breakdown in the table on the right there. As I go through this, I'm happy to answer any more detailed questions. I think next slide. So this is a greater breakdown of our labor cost. You can see salaries for,
Go back up to one.
okay, a greater breakdown of labor costs. In the table, you can see the differences between the current fiscal year approved budget and the FY26 budget. So, nominal increases across the board. yeah, salaries, benefits, and then there's board expenses on the bottom part of the table. Maybe next slide. Into the capital budget now. See the comparison from 25 to 26. Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, you'll see the City Center Guideway Stations, $527 million roughly for the next fiscal year. Pearl Highlands, we anticipated to put that out to bid. That's the full amount for the Pearl Highlands Transit Center and ramp. Wapau Station Mackay entrance, that's the full value for the Mackay entrance, assuming we get that out in this fiscal year. Dynamic voltage compensator, you see we requested $60 million last year. We have deferred that project, so we are not going to be requesting that in FY26. And then project management costs are the remaining $23 million.
And that's about it.
Good. Okay, so again, members, although not all members are part of the finance committee, I believe we've had considerable discussion on the budget as it moved forward and was presented to the city council and brought back before the board after city council approval for board final approval. With that said, are there any questions for any board members regarding the operating and capital budget that's before us for action this morning?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Natalie, go ahead.
Just one question, which I hope will be quick. I brought this up before, but the federal funding of $125 million. As we know, the president pulled the California funding for their rail project. Has there been any change with respect to the likelihood of us getting this $125 million from the federal government this year, the next fiscal year?
So I can just... Thanks, Natalie. So there's no change. We have no indication that that funding is in jeopardy. In fact, the opposite is true. We've been told that the FFGA, established FFGA grant agreements and the funding in those agreements is solid. As the board knows, we communicate regularly with our federal partners, at least once a month, if not more frequently than that, providing project status updates. And we have no indications that the funding is in jeopardy, and in fact, indications are that there's continued confidence in the project, and I think we're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Natalie. Anybody else have any questions regarding the budget before us? If not, can I get a motion?
Chair, I move that we adopt the operating and capital budget for 2026.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Are there any objections to the motion to approve the operating and capital budget for fiscal year 2026?
Kika?
Yes.
May I don't know if this is like a friendly amendment to the motion. I would like to amend the motion by stating the specific numbers for the operating budget and capital budget. So I would amend the motion to approve HART's fiscal year 2026 operating budget of $174.7 million and the capital budget of $793.6 million, just to make it more specific, for record purposes.
Chair, I'm happy to accept the amendment.
Okay. So the motion has been amended as suggested and recited by the Chair of Finance Committee, and we're all in agreement. Anybody have any discussion on the amendment to the motion to include the specific numbers for the operating and capital budget for fiscal year 2026? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve the budget as stated. Are there any objections to the motion to approve? Seeing no objections, the motion is passed. If we can move on to agenda item number 6. We have 3 agenda items, 6, 7, and 8. These are all resolutions regarding eminent domain. What I'd like to do for efficiency is take all these 3 agenda items up at one time. I believe we have Krista here to provide presentations on each or all. And if we could do that, but before we move forward, can I ask if there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to provide testimony on either of these items, number 6, resolution number 2025-14, item number 7, resolution number 2025-15, or item number 8, resolution number 2025-16. Any testimony? Any comments? Seeing none? Okay, Krista, would you like to do a
Hi,
presentation?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we do have two separate presentations. The first matter is Resolution 2025-14, and that's the request for approval to notify City Council of Hart's intent to acquire easements by eminent domain. I have a different presentation for the other two matters. So we'll first talk about Servco.
Okay, so Krista, the hope is just to go through the presentation, and if we have to go into executive session, we can do so. Is that okay?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Vance is passing out the presentation. I'm sorry, a lot of this was last minute, and so we did not have it prior to the meeting today. And he has the resolution as well.
Okay, so just for the audience, we have handouts being passed out. We're going to be passing this out to the audience members as well, people who are present here. And I think we're going to be trying to make this available online as well.
Yeah, Krista, are you able to share your screen? Is that?
Chad has the presentation? No? Did Lori just bring it down? Okay, I can share.
Okay, we're working on it. While we're working on it, Krista, I think you can go ahead and...
Oh, wait. Yeah.
I can share.
Yeah, Krista, if you would, please. Chad has one, but we're not sure if it's the executive session one or the public. So if you can share.
Oh, no,
your screen.
it's public. There is not an executive session presentation today.
Okay, great. Well, she's got it up anyway.
But
Thank you.
But I have it. Okay.
Thanks, Krista.
Request for approval to notify City Council of Hart's intent to acquire an easement. The first slide here has the overview of the property and then also the overview of the easement areas. So, and I'll be addressing this in a minute, but when we were with you in May, we had asked for fee simple interest in the property, but we've since been able to better identify exactly what Hart needs, and it is easement acquisitions. And so there's 3 areas. One area is highlighted in yellow, and it's a permanent easement for the station and some utility facilities. There's an orange area that's highlighted, and that is where there will be a column placed. And then there's a blue area that's temporary. We only need that during the time of construction. It will revert back to Servco when construction is complete. Moving on to the next slide, this is again just the property with the various easements, and it does show the station overlay, and it shows how the station impacts their building. So for some background, it's necessary to acquire easements on, over, above, and through the Servco property for development of the HRTP. There are 2 easements, permanent, one for placement of a straddle bent column and one to accommodate the Civic Center station needs, which include an elevated platform, elevator, stairwell, and electrical facilities. There's also a need to acquire a temporary easement to use during the period of construction. This temporary easement will revert back to Servco when it is no longer needed for construction. The easement area is improved with an 8,580 square foot building. The building conflicts with the project needs and will be removed from the easement areas. The parties have been negotiating a right of entry that will allow Hart access to the Servco property for construction purposes. However, in the event that a right of entry and a settlement agreement cannot be successfully negotiated, it may be necessary to begin a condemnation. It is necessary to begin the condemnation approval process in order to meet the CCGS construction schedule. If a right of entry is obtained, condemnation of the property will not be required at this time. And then just a reminder of the approval process. So today we're asking for permission to notify the council. If we receive that, then we will provide notice to the council, and they have 45 days to approve or object by adoption of a resolution regarding Hart's intent to acquire the property by eminent domain, and upon approval or no action by the city council after 45 days, the board of directors will be asked to approve condemnation, which would actually allow us to file the suit. So right now, we're just asking for permission to start that 45-day clock ticking. All right, any questions?
Any questions, members? I'll give the public another opportunity to provide comment once we're done with all the three presentations. Any members' questions? Okay. go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Kika, I have a couple of housekeeping pieces. The resolution that's been passed out, the legal descriptions are not attached. They're on their way down. They're being printed right now. And also the map that's attached, there's just one typo in it. There's a clean copy coming down without that typo. So if the resolution is passed, I would ask that we be able to insert those extra pages that are being printed right now.
Okay.
Chair.
Sorry, good enough,
Go
please,
ahead.
please, no, please, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. So Krista, just a couple questions. Servco was here to provide testimony on this matter at the last board meeting. Now, one of the things is, two questions. It seems like they did, in their testimony, they didn't know about our plans to take this part of the property until just recently. And you kind of mentioned that, yes, they were informed in April of this year. And also, their concern in their testimony was that that if they have to leave by January, that it may not be possible to move the operation that quickly. Is that all resolved with Servco, or is that like an executive session question and answer?
Krista can answer that.
Okay, Krista.
Those are things, I would want to talk about those in executive session. It's not really public for me to talk about our negotiations or our discussions in private.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess
Yep,
just to kind of add on to that, we're going forward with the condemnation discussions because is it because the landowner is unwilling to negotiate with us, or what is the purpose of pushing forward on condemnation?
So they are willing and we're working very hard negotiating the agreements that we need for access. And they've been a good partner with us so far, absolutely a good partner. However, we do have a time frame where we have to be able to, let's just say negotiations break down. We have a time frame that we have to be ready to file in court in order to meet the deadlines that are set forth by the contract with our construction contractor. If we don't start this process of approval, in the event we can't meet an agreement, we're going to be short. We're going to be not where we need to be in 75 days. So this just lets us start that clock ticking with the council. It lets us continue to work with Servco to come to an agreement to get access to the property. They are all there in the room today. I know that they're not testifying, but they are there in support of what we're doing. We're trying to meet an agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony?
Chair, I'd just like to quickly comment that if you look at the first proposal from a month ago and compare it to today, there's substantial difference, substantial changes. And what that indicates to me is precisely what Chris has been telling us, that both sides seem to be working together. And I can commend Krista for the work she's doing, but also Servco for coming to the table and working with us.
Thank you for that, Anthony. That is exactly right. Both parties are working very hard to come to an agreement.
Any other questions, members?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Natalie?
Just an observation. I'm just curious, actually, why this wasn't posted on the agenda and why you're still working on the legal descriptions for the resolution. I think it makes it difficult for people to vote if they haven't had a, time to actually review the documents.
Natalie, like I said, we've been working very hard to come to an agreement, and part of those negotiations was a change from a fee acquisition, which we had mapped, and legal descriptions to easement acquisitions. And it took us a while to be able to identify exactly what we would need for easements for permanent and for temporary, and then to get it to our surveyor and get it mapped. And all of this has been happening in the last 10 days. So we've just had a very tight time frame. I always take the date of posting very seriously. I do my very best to have things available for you, so you do have time to review them. But in this instance, I mean, all of us were on the call last night. I'm in Minnesota. I was on the call in the evening trying to, getting everything together. So this has been a quickly moving thing, but moving towards resolution and not towards, hopefully we're working away from needing to condemn.
Appreciate that. So, and I do notice you've had your stuff timely posted before. So
Natalie, I just want to add to Krista's and the team and the rest of the team. So as Anthony stated, things have changed as we start to partner with Servco. Some of their requests we're trying to accommodate, and so to change things, that's why the timing, that's why we weren't able to post it in time, and our team is scrambling to get the information that would be beneficial to both Hart and to Servco. So that's part of the delay.
understood. So it's not clear to me now. You said that this changed from a fee acquisition to an easement. So does that mean that Servco still has to move their operations, or can they stay there and maybe scale down a bit? Or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
We are still working through some of those details. Right now, the building is clearly in conflict with our construction, and the building will have to remove. So they're still then eligible for relocation. But in talking, if there's a way that we can make a modification or scale that down, we are still open to hearing that and working through that with them. That's part of what we are still working on. But Servco is aware that the building is a conflict and that relocation is necessary, most likely. So they are also looking at their options there, and they're eligible for relocation benefits. So that is part of a separate process and will be worked on with them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Natalie.
Any other? Yes, Roger.
Yeah, I'd like to add my, congratulations to both Hart and to Servco, hopefully. That was my concern at the last board meeting, was the impact that the project would have on Servco and potentially the loss of opportunity for creating a better urban place in that area, which is very important, I think. So kudos to both Hart and to Servco and to the city administration, who I understand is party of this too, to try to come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Chair, just one last comment.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes, Anthony.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, by the way, that this is an area that will be permanently flooding within probably about 50 years. And so that's a building that was going to have to be moved anyway. The fact that the station is elevated is going to help with resilience for people who live in that area and businesses that work in that area. But in other words, I don't think Hart is forcing something that wasn't going to have to happen anyway. What's crucial and what's very satisfying is the fact that Servco has been able to work with us on this.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? So, to Natalie's point, I know this isn't ideal, for the board as far as having all the information readily available in front of us to make a decision. But given the fact that it appears as though we have two willing parties that are trying to work through the negotiations and it's ongoing, I think that, and the timing that's involved as far as moving this at least to the next step, which, for clarification, is really just providing notice to the council. It's not the actual vote on an eminent domain yet. So given that, I'd ask for the members' leeway, I guess, on some of the information that's forthcoming. I know we're a little tight on time, but I did want to offer the parties involved, Servco Pacific, I know they're in the audience, if anybody wanted to say any words or comments, Krista, if we could give them a few minutes to do so before we move on.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. If you could state your name and where you, obviously you're with Servco, but please go ahead.
Absolutely. Peter Fukunaga from Circle, and there's actually quite a few of us here that wanted to come down and just make a quick comment on behalf of the group, and some of the others might have comments as well. But first off, we just want to say thank you to Laura and Krista and Team Vance, all the team that they're openly discussing with us and trying to come up with a good resolution. And we just wanted to, in that spirit, request that we continue down that path. Specifically to this, one comment is the area in yellow. I believe that can be continued to be discussed on what actually goes there, and how it becomes permanent, and if there's a way that can still remain in our FAR, so that there is the opportunity to continue work together to really build something great for the community down there. And I think that yellow piece, of course, that orange piece makes complete sense, as a big column there, but that yellow piece would really request that we continue those discussions on coming to a really good solution. And then, again, as we've had great discussions with Lori, but how we can work together on this station design. And I know there's hurdles and difficulties for all the parties involved, but if we can work on this station design together and it seamlessly integrates to where the community can enter, we believe that it would be tremendous for ridership, for use, for all of the above, and for first mile, last mile. There's so many different things that this station can do to make the rail work. And so we just really wanted to thank the group, but push the urgency that we need to continue to work together right now, because there's so much that goes into the station design, and Tutor Perini has so much time constraints that, from hopefully tomorrow or whatever it is, we can really start talking about the station.
Chair, if I could add, it's really refreshing to be working with a property owner that wants to partner with us and allow us to come in and to, actually create something terrific for the community and for the public in the future. So it's been refreshing working with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I can feel the energy coming from Anthony already on the design of the station, but it is.
Well, I caution now, and the Circle teams know this. You know how I am with schedule and budget.
Yeah.
We cannot adversely affect them, but we want to make sure that we're not building a wall to prevent integration with what their future plans are. But so just know that I'm so worried about the budget and the schedule. So.
Yeah, as we all are on the board. So in that spirit, I appreciate, you folks being present here. And with that said, any other comments, questions from the board members?
Pika,
Yes, Lisa.
may I make one, can I just make one
Krista.
comment to Peter's remarks? Yes. Peter, just to make some clarification about the FAR, so when it is an easement acquisition, most of the FAR will remain with the property owner, so Hart will need a little bit of FAR to build the station. We'll have to figure out exactly what that is, but most of the FAR will revert back to Servco.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
Ed, did
Thank
you
you.
want to?
I mean, just real quick, and maybe I'm looking at this from a different perspective, but for us at DOT, we very rarely push forward on condemnation unless we absolutely have to, and it seems like the two parties are in agreement in the way to move forward, and it seems like the right of entry would be the best way to just keep pushing this forward, getting this done, and pushing this out. So I'm just wondering again what the condemnation piece is for.
So there's still a couple of pieces that the two parties need to come to agreement on. And at the end of the day, if we can't do it, we're going to have to file to condemn. And we have a very tight schedule for when we have to have that property available. And so this is just, I don't know what the process is for HDOT, what you have to do before you can file, but we have a very lengthy, rigorous process to get approval to condemn. And if we don't start it now, we're going to be 30 days behind, because we'll be back in 30 days to do this.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, Krista, we can move on to the next two.
Okay.
Chair, so I'm going to log off. I'll log back on as soon as I can. Thank you.
Okay, Krista, what would you prefer voting on these individually or taking them all at one time?
Well, I would actually, Kika, like you to vote on this one because it is a different request
Okay.
than the others. The others is actually a request to condemn, where this one is just the notice.
Okay, appreciate it. So
I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 2025-14.
okay, I have a motion.
Second.
Roger, second. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2025-15. I'm sorry, 14. Sorry. Yeah, is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I second the motion. I understand the need to get through this, but in no means does my second, show enthusiasm for condemnation. I think that we're on a path toward resolution, and I think that's by far the best path. And I also would note that before condemnation would be allowed, that the board would have to approve that specifically. This is an intermediate step, simply to guard the schedule as noted by Krista, and that's why I will support this motion.
Thank you, Roger. Any other discussion?
Chair, just real quick.
Ed?
And I kind of, to piggyback and echo on Roger's thoughts. Overall, I think Servco has been a great partner to the community and to this project throughout. So to make sure that, as Roger had discussed, the condemnation discussions right now are to ensure that we set up a backstop. But this by no means should stop us from working with Servco as quickly as possible to get this done. And I appreciate everything that Lori and Krista is doing, and I know that they're going to work in that direction.
Thank you, Ed. Any other members? Okay, we have a motion and a second. With that, I just want to echo what was said, and I appreciate the parties working together, and hopefully, working with Hart, we can start looking at the design and how I agree with Laurie completely. I think it's refreshing to see a property owner actually wanting to work with Hart to integrate the station into their property so that we can create an experience and improve ridership as much as possible. So with that said, and I look forward to the two parties working together to find some kind of resolution. I have tremendous confidence in Krishna. With that said, are there any objections on the motion to approve resolution 2025-14? If there are no objections,
All right, I just want to check with Art and Lisa, who are both
Art,
muted.
Lisa, you folks have any objections to the approval?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm
Okay.
in favor.
Thank you. Okay, the resolution 2025-14 to provide notice to the council has been approved. Okay, thank you. And thank
Thank you,
Servco
Kika.
for participating in this process. Moving on to agenda items 7 and 8, Krista.
Okay, agenda item 7 and 8, resolution, request for approval to acquire by eminent domain a fee simple interest in real property owned by both Goodwill Kaka'ako Center, Big Brother, Big Sister of Hawaii, and then a second property owned by Bank of Hawaii as trustee for the Catherine McGow Cooper Trust. I see that you have the presentation up in front of you. This presentation was posted, so Natalie, I believe that you've had it for review. The first page is a property overview of the Goodwill property. It is a parking lot area, and on the right-hand side, you can see that the area that we need is 203 square feet. And it's for a straddle bent column. Next page, please. The next page shows the Catherine Cooper Trust property, and on the right-hand side, you can see the area. It's fee simple. I'm sorry that the map is labeled as an easement. It should be fee simple. These are not easements. This is 475 square feet, and again, it is for accommodation of a straddle bent column on Halakuila. Next slide. Hart requires fee simple interest in a portion of the subject properties to accommodate the placement of guideway straddle bent columns along Halakuila Street. Hart presented offers prepared in compliance with the Uniform Act. The owners have been given a reasonable time to consider the offers. In order to adhere to the CCGS construction schedule, it's necessary to refer the properties to condemnation. We have not been able to come to terms with the owners. Efforts will be made to continue negotiations with each owner with the goal of reaching an amicable and reasonable settlement. Upon approval of the requested resolutions, condemnation actions will be filed with the First Circuit Court of Hawaii. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Members, any questions?
Yes, Chair, I just have one.
Yes, Natalie?
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. So can you just let us know what, or remind us when Hart first started negotiating this condemnation with the property owners?
We had discussions with the property owners prior to appraising. Are you talking about either one in particular, Natalie?
Well, if there were two different points, then maybe both points. But what I'm trying to get at is, how long has Hart been working on this particular parcel?
So these properties, we've probably made offers, I believe, back in March. Oh, well, we came to you in March. We came to you in April, I'm sorry, to notify the council. So we had 45 days lapse before we came to you in April. So that means that offers would have been made in February. I'm sorry, I didn't have those dates in the presentation, but they were made 45 days before our first trip to the council, or to you, the board.
Okay, so just so we understand that this is the final step that you need approval on, because there
That's
have
correct.
been no appreciable movement from the owner on the offers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Roger?
Krista, I mean, is the nature of the inability to come to agreement because of any operational issues, or is it financial, or would you rather say that in executive session?
That would be something I'd want to talk about in executive session, but I don't think it has to do with operations.
Okay, that answers it, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? Okay, so I think I kind of reneged on my earlier request to take all three at the same time. But, so why don't, if there aren't any questions on this item, Krista, why don't we move into, do you see a need to, does anyone have a need to go into executive session on this? Okay, can we go through item number 8, Krista, take questions, and then if need be, we go into executive session at that point? Are you okay with that?
Yes, so the presentation I gave covers both 7 and 8.
Okay,
And so both properties were part of that. I would be okay if we went into executive session about both of them. I think it's up to Dan as to whether or not that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine with me. And I think actually, just to speed things up, because we're going to lose quorum soon, I think we can all duck into that room. And Krista, I'll try to get you on phone. And we'll do.
Oh, sure.
But we have 2 board members that are
I'm
online.
going to do Lisa and Art also. So,
Okay.
Art, I don't know that I have your cell phone. So I'm going to call your office, okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
okay, with that said, can I get a motion? Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Can I get a second? Okay, any objections to going into executive session?
Just
For
a
the
comment,
purposes-
Chair?
Yes, Natalie?
Thank you. So I understand that since I haven't signed the confidentiality agreement, and that is because Corporation Counsel and the Attorney General's office have 2 different opinions on that, I understand that I will not be allowed in the executive sessions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. So for the audience and those online, we're going to be ducking out into another room for the executive session. If you'd like to remain, you can remain in this room. Appreciate it, and we'll see you folks shortly. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Hart Board Board of Directors meeting. We just came out of executive session. We had general discussions regarding resolution number 2025-15 as well as resolution number 2025-16. I believe the board is ready to take action on these two items. I'd like to take up agenda item number 7 first, resolution number 2025-15, approval to acquire by eminent domain a fee simple interest in a portion of the real property identified as tax map key 2-1-031-039, located at 576 Halikuila Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2025-15. Are there any objections to the motion to approve resolution number 2025-15? Or is there any discussion on the resolution before I go into the vote? Any discussion, any questions, members? No questions. Are there any objections to the motion to approve resolution number 2025-15? Any reservations? Seeing none, the motion is approved. Next,
Excuse me, Chair,
yes.
don't we have to have verbal confirmation from Lisa?
Okay, sorry.
I'm here. Verbal confirmation and I approve.
Thank you, Lisa. And Art?
Approve.
Okay, thank you, Art. Appreciate it. Moving on to the next agenda, item number 8, resolution number 2025-16, approval to acquire by eminent domain a fee simple interest in a portion of the real property identified as tax map key 2-1-051-031, located at 609 Keawe Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2025-16. Is there any discussion? Members, questions? Seeing none, are there any objections to the motion to approve resolution number 2025-16? Art, Lisa, can I get verbal?
Yep, verbal from Lisa.
Approval.
Thank you, appreciate it. With that said, the motion has been approved.
Thank you so much.
Any other?
Thank you, Krista. I believe that takes care of all the action items. Dan?
We need, is it just an explanation on the segment 1 rail grinding claim? Is that just an update? No vote?
So we need to go into executive session, so Chair, if you can take a vote, or a motion and a vote to go into executive session, Lisa can stay online for that. So.
Okay, so I'd like to take up,
Chair, can I just make one quick comment
Yes.
on the last two resolutions?
yes,
The Star Advertiser has repeatedly reported that we're taking these properties by eminent domain as if we're taking the entire property, and that's not the case. We're talking about a small portion of each property, and I want to make that clear to the public. Thank you, Chair.
thank you, Anthony, appreciate that. I'd like to take up agenda item number 4D, if possible, segment 1, rail grinding claims update. And I believe we want to enter, we reserve our right to enter into executive session pursuant to section 92-4 and subsection 92-5A4. Can I get a motion and a second to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion and second. Are there any objections to going into executive session for item 4D, segment 1, rail grinding claims?
And Lisa, are you a yes for executive session?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Lisa. Art?
Yes.
Okay, are we going to stay in this room or are we going to move? Okay, we're going to move out to another room. We'll call you, Art, by phone.
Maybe we should stay in this room.
Yeah, all of these people need to.
We just lock the door.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Stay in this room?
Carolyn and Natalie have to get.
Yeah, we just have.
Chair,
Yes, Natalie?
just for the record, making the same comment that I did before, that I understand I will not be allowed because I haven't signed the confidentiality agreement.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, Natalie. I apologize if I didn't open it up for discussion after the motion. Okay, we're going to go into executive session. We'll stay in this room. Welcome back. We're coming out of executive session on item number 4D, Segment 1 rail grinding claims update. We just reviewed some aspects regarding the Segment 1 rail grinding claim. No action was taken, and we'll taking up agenda item number 4A, Segment 2 art presentation.
Sorry, can I just add a couple of things? One, I wanted to note that Board Member Robert Yu left prior to the first executive session, so he didn't participate in that. And Board Member Lisa Baker participated through the last executive session, but she signed off of the meeting just when we were finishing executive session. So we currently do not have quorum.
Okay, so next. And just for the record, my understanding is that although we do not have quorum, we can still continue on with the remainder of the agenda items that do not require action. We can receive comments, testimony from the staff as well as from the public. We just cannot have deliberation or discussion amongst board members.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Vance, when you're ready.
So in preparation for segment 2 opening, we wanted to preview with you folks the art that was installed at the stations. All the art has been installed, completed, and I think you'll find some of the photos here. You know, we've got really good art throughout segment 2. So the first one is the Makalapa Station Joint Base Pearl Harbor. The artist is Carol Bennett, who's from Kauai. She does a lot of 2D graphic designs. This photo here, you know, you're looking towards the westbound traffic lanes. The artwork is above that in the concourse area. They're glass pieces. There, if you can go to the next, there you go. So, you know, from the left photo there, you're within the station, you can look up and see the art. And then from the exterior as you're driving, don't suggest that you look up while you're driving. You know, just as a passenger, you can take a look as you pass by. And then through the concourse level, walking on that bridge, you have the artwork on the left and right side. So the materials, you know, custom color inlays sandwiched in between tempered laminated safety glass panels. The artwork's inspired by waterfalls from the mountains in the Halava, Ahupua'a area. The fresh water goes out to the fish ponds in the harbor, at one point abundant with oysters, where pearls were cultivated, hence, you know, Pearl Harbor. You can go to the next. So you get more of a straight-on view of the artwork. The artwork also depicts the Hawaiian shark goddess who safeguards and protects the mouth of Pearl Harbor. The next one is the Lelepao Station, or the airport station. The artist there is Mamoru Sato, who's from Honolulu, famous for his modernist sculptures. So that photo there is the exterior of the station. This station faces the Mauka side, and that, you know, pipes or artwork there painted on pipes is the sunrise. If you go to the next, if you're standing close to the lay stand, you can kind of see the artwork too. It's the evening time shot there. And then next, yeah, there you go. So, you know, close up from the exterior, and then as you're inside the station, you can see the opposite side, just mirrored. There's about 70 pipes that make up the artwork there, and it's the paint is a very resilient, high quality paint that will last a long time.
Is it protected too, with some type of graffiti protection?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. We can double check. And if you go to, yep. So this is the other side of the station. So if you're actually standing in the concourse area, you can look one way and then turn around and look the other way. You can see the opposite side, and this is for the sunset.
That's pretty cool.
And if you,
You're
yeah.
looking west in that direction, right?
This one you're looking south towards the ocean. And the other one is towards the mountain.
Pretty nice.
So the next one is Hua Station, Lagoon Drive. So this is Carol Yotsuda from Kauai. She partnered with Stephen Miyoto. So this is the Mauka Station. So this is a mosaic artwork. Each little piece of tile was put together off-site to make the artwork, and then they basically pieced it out together and then brought it to site and assembled it on site. This artwork, if you go to the next slide, get a better view of it, is inspired by the legend of the goddess Pele and her visits to Mauna Loa during her journey across the Hawaiian Islands. Here, it kind of depicts her tears that would fall into the water and then create salt. So there's an abundance of salt in that area, hence the area called Salt Lake. And then on the Makai side, same technique in terms of putting all those mosaic tiles together and building it off-site and then kind of piecing it out and then assembling on site. The artwork here is inspiration from the legend of the Battle of the Owls and the once thriving fishing village in this area. So one thing to point out, I know we don't have a full picture of the station, but the station roofing design is there to represent the wings of an owl or a pueo. And then lastly, the Middle Street Kahawiki Station. The artist is Deborah Named, who's from Oahu, famous for printmaking and abstract art. So within the station, ground level and the concourse level, there are 48 bronze pavers total. It's all spaced out throughout the station. The artwork consists of graphic patterns etched into the trapezoidal bronze pavers. You go to the next slide. And the drawings of the patterns are inspiration from the local seaweed that's abundant in Mamama Bay and Kehi Lagoon, as well as fish nets. And that's it.
Members, any questions, comments?
Yes, Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah. Natalie, go ahead, and then Anthony.
Thank you for your presentation. On slide 11, those tubes, does that make music or musical tones or anything like that?
No, it doesn't. But that would be pretty cool if it did. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it looks like it might, so I just thought I'd ask. And then on slide 26, what was the cost of the ground art? Do you know?
Yes. So the overall cost for art at Middle Street is about $200,000.
Okay. And then is the art program required by the federal government?
I don't believe it's a federal requirement. I believe there's some state requirements in terms of, incorporating art in the capital projects.
Okay, and then one last question. So what is the total cost of the art program? I seem to recall it was several $1 million. Do you have that?
Yeah, and I think it's about 2.1 million, if I'm not mistaken. And I think
that's all?
Corey left.
I thought it was more like 6 million. It's only 2 million?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Natalie. Anthony?
So obviously, everybody has their own opinion about art. It's a question of personal taste. I thought of the 4 stations that we're looking at here, the one that's least successful is the last one. And I think it's in part because while the pavers might have looked good when the presentation was originally made, when you see them in the context of the flooring, they actually don't really stand out. And so to the extent that we can pass on a comment to the Art Commission is to perhaps learn a lesson from that I don't think that that piece of artwork is as successful as it might have been, which is not a comment on the artist herself or her other work, but it's just in this context, to my mind, it just doesn't really work very well.
Yep. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we can move on to agenda item number 4E, Chinatown Station definitive design presentation.
Yeah, and again, another preview for the board. We are presenting next week, Thursday, to the neighborhood for design workshop for the Chinatown station. This station being the first station. So we have 2 design workshops per station that's required. One at definitive design or 30% design, and then as we get those comments and we address those comments, incorporate anything that we can, another presentation will be held at about 70% design. So this is a shortened version of what's going to be presented next week, Thursday. And we encourage the public to come out and provide feedback and any input that they may have. Again, this is input for feel and touch, kind of the landscaping, color of the station, architectural features of the station. Those types of things is what we're looking for. If you go to the next slide. So the next slide is the overall station floor plan. This is on the ground level. You can see to the right there, that street is Kekalike Street, and then at the bottom is Nimitz. The station kind of faces the corner of Nimitz and Kekalike. You can see the fare gates there. So all the typical features that we have at the station, like the ticket vending machines, the fare gates, we have the elevator, stairs to get up to the platform level, will all be there within the station. Some of the other things to note on this plan here, DTS is working through the Kekalike Mall, revitalization. So some of that, will lead into that area, but trying to incorporate some of the features in that area. Halal Market building shown there, and the other building, Igoto building, is potential opportunity for DTS to do other, I don't want to say development, but partnerships in terms of incorporating the station in that area. And we've had discussions with DTS on the possibilities of that and using that area. If you go to the next, some of the things that I mentioned, landscaping, planting, we have the designers took a look at the area and what would best suit the area in terms of, looking at the climate and whether it rains a lot or you have a lot of sun. Some of the proposed greenery that they have chosen, but again, open to the neighborhood's input for that as well. Go to the next slide. So just an elevation view of the station. Again, that car there on the bottom left corner, that's Nimitz Highway, and then Kekalike would be in front of us going up towards the mountains. As you can see, just noting some of the same features you see is the elevator shaft, the concourse level. So Chinatown Station, there's only a touchdown on the Mauka side, the Mackay side of the station. There is no touchdown, so all the entrance for passengers will be from this side of the station. They would either go up directly to the platform to go one direction. If they are going the opposite direction, they would use the concourse to cross over to the other side and then go up to the platform for the other direction. One thing to note as well, the canopies up on the platform, I think we've mentioned multiple times previously, we aren't prescribing the contractor to install the tensile fabric type canopies. The contractor has the ability to propose different types of material for the canopies on the platform. So what we're seeing is more of a metal type typical roofing for the platform area. We go to the next slide. Just another rendering elevation view. And then next slide. aerial view. So you can see there the Mackay side of the station. You know, it's somewhat of a unique station, kind of an engineering feat here. The station will be overhanging the highway there with no touchdown. So everything will be, you know, sitting on those large hammerheads for the station. We've got an elevator on that side, so again, a lot of weight and a lot of equipment that will be on that side of the station. Next slide. So again, some of the features, you know, we are looking at our look and feel, you know, the type of CMU blocks, the color of the blocks, the color of the painting, kind of things we're looking for from the community. You know, Chinatown has a historic district and there's historic properties there, so we don't want to take away from that historic feel of the area. So, you know, some of the colors, you know, we want to keep within the station to not be so disruptive to, you know, the look and feel of the area. And then some of the architectural blocks there, some of the things that can be incorporated. Next slide. And these are all just preliminary, again, you know, 30% design. And you know, a lot of this will change, but they're just presenting, you know, what could be there, what it could look like. So like, you know, some of the interpretive signage, you know, I guess, mounts and features. Another thing that they are looking at proposing is an artifact case. So while we were doing a lot of the utility work and, you know, digging at the stations, digging within the streets, we found a lot of artifacts that we've been collecting. And one idea there is to showcase some of those artifacts, some cool artifacts, you know, whether it's from the Hawaiian culture, from the Chinese culture, or even old soda bottles from local soda factory way back in the day. So looking at, you know, putting some of those artifacts within the station to kind of display it. And then the last slide here, again, just to remind everyone, these are 30% design, so, you know, some of this could change and will change, but, you know, at this point in time, you know, some of the renderings that were provided, again, you know, looking at that station, that whole Mackay side is floating over the highway there.
How high, what is the elevation? Is it 20 feet from the highway or?
I want to say it's more than that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we can check. Yeah. You'd have to meet all the minimum, you know, roadway height requirements for all the trucks and everything. Yeah.
Like 15 feet or something,
Yeah.
so it looks more than that.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Well, I think under the Cool administration, we agreed to raise above the federal minimum. I think 5 or 6 feet above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guideway, yep, exactly.
To account for sea level rise.
It certainly is an engineering award.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all we have. Unless there's questions.
Okay, questions, comments for the Hart staff?
Yes, Chair, I have one question.
Yes, Natalie?
Thank you, Vance, for your presentation. So there's some landscaping involved, and you know, if landscaping isn't done properly, it's either high maintenance or plants end up dying. So and we've had this on different places in the island already. So I'm just wondering, when you guys or when the designers worked through this, did they involve a landscaping expert on that?
Yes, they have landscape architects that will design the landscaping.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And just to add to that, you know, working with Roger and his team to ensure we don't plant anything that they can't maintain. So, you know, really collaborating with eventually the maintainer.
Yeah, we
DTS.
maintain it, Natalie, and we're very concerned to make sure it's as low maintenance as possible.
Great. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, members? Okay, if there are none, let's move on to I think this is the last, for this item, agenda item, number
C.
4C, planned elimination of escalators from station. So I believe this was added on by Chair. And if you can provide any kind of input, update, information on this particular agenda item. We may, the chair may bring it on again in the future, but I think since it's on the agenda, we could speak to it in any way.
Yeah, and I think this references to the recent article in the Star Advertiser in terms of the escalators. And I think the article wasn't accurate in terms of what was stated there. You know, the escalators weren't eliminated. These stations are designed with no escalators, and you know, that was a determination made while we were putting the CCGS procurement package together to reduce costs. And I just want to, you know, point out that not all these stations through segment 1 and 2 have escalators. You know, 7 of the 13 have escalators. There's 6 stations that have no escalators at all. Segment 2, only 1 station has escalators, and that's the Pearl Harbor station. All others have none. And also to note that, you know, the stations are designed to meet ADA requirements. We have the required elevators at stations, and these decisions, you know, that were made were also made in conjunction with DTS and Roger and his team of, you know, future maintenance and the need for passenger flow and ridership. And then also to point out, I don't know if everyone understands or knows the escalators on the west side. I found it interesting, you know, after doing a deeper dive. You know, I've been to the stations many times, but never really noticed. The Westlock station, for example, they have 1 escalator, and that 1 escalator goes from ground level to concourse level, and that's it. So it doesn't take you all the way up to the platform, and it only runs in one direction, and currently that's in the up direction. So there's no escalators to get down. But again, you know, all the stations have the required ADA requirements, elevators. We did work with Roger and his team on stations that would require redundant elevators, so that, you know, if there's any issues, they can continue to run service with the redundant elevators. Not to speak on Roger's behalf, but the maintenance on these escalators, you know, are very costly as well. I think almost on a weekly basis, almost a daily basis, we get alerts that the escalators are out of service. They need to be checked on or worked on or fixed, and then it's put back into service. So a lot of maintenance that goes into that, and a lot of issues with escalators, not just here, but, you know, within the country and other, you know, the malls and things like that. You know, if you ever run into non-operational escalators at the mall, that occurs a lot.
Yeah, just for the record, we weren't necessarily in favor of removing escalators. It was done for cost-saving reasons. We asked HART to explore the opportunity of designing the stations so that they could be added later. The result was that the stations would be more costly because they were not built with the structure that would be required to have escalators. Clearly, across the country, there are many rail stations that are older that do not have escalators in New York and Boston and other places like that. But the modern trend for modern stations is escalators. It's unfortunate we don't have them.
Further comment, question?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, this has come up before. I agree with the decision not to include escalators at this point, because we do need to watch the money and the funds. They're very tight. But I also sympathize with the reaction of the public. And in part, it's motivated by the fact that we have one of the fastest aging populations in the country, also the longest lived population in the country. And if this system is as successful as I hope it will be, then in future years, I think there may be a demand for that. But the other point is that we can come in at a later date if we find the funds. Perhaps there's a business improvement district levy. We could come in and install escalators at a later date, and I think that's an option that the public needs to be made aware of. We can't afford to do it right now, but that doesn't preclude us from doing it at some point in the future. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, so, with that said, I know that Chair Hanabusa had put this on, and so out of deference, I guess, just knowing that she may decide to bring this on because she hasn't had a chance to comment or ask questions on this particular item, and she may have had some specific questions that she may have wanted to ask, so just noting that. If there's no other questions or comments, I believe that brings us to agenda item number 9, summary of board requests made at the June 20th Board of Directors meeting. And I can't think of any. Does anybody have any particular requests, comments? Natalie, follow-ups? Okay. Seeing none, before we adjourn, I just want to make a real brief comment, and we have an obligation as a board, right? As Heart Board, and as well as Heart itself. And I just want to make note, the absence of Chair Hanabusa. Not to go into specifics, because quite frankly, I don't know the specifics, but I do know that several of our board members, as well as Heart staff, are going through some obligations, personal obligations that are either unforeseen or just part of life. And I just want to note, although we do have an obligation to the public and to Heart, I just want to note, the presence of everyone here to make quorum so that we can conduct business and take action that we need to take action to keep this project moving forward. And I just want to say that I hope, everybody is taking care of themselves and their health, and everybody is all good, and we can continue to move this project forward. But I just want to note, today, I know it was a challenge getting quorum and keeping quorum just so that we can get action going. And I know that a number of members have personal obligations to family, and Member Alto mentioned the aging population. I think we're all kind of going through some personal things. And I know I'm taking some liberty on this, but I just want to say I hope everybody, takes care. And thank you very much for being present and for helping us conduct business so we can get things done. Anyway, with that said.
Today was also Robert's last meeting.
I was about to say, can I?
Sure.
Isn't it Art Tolentino's last meeting as well?
I think so.
I don't know.
Oh, but yeah, I wanted to I don't know if we have to agendize this, but I was going to ask for a vote of thanks to Robert Yu, because this is his last board meeting.
We can't vote, but you can certainly express your thanks.
All right. Well, I guess I have to express my thanks to the staff rather than to the other members of the board, given that we don't have a quorum. But I would like to personally note that it's been a real pleasure working with Robert Yu, and he has done sterling work. He's done really excellent work, helping keep our finances sorted out. And I'm personally very grateful to him. And I would like to publicly express my thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, does anybody else want to offer up any comments?
Yeah, I want to just say a few words that it's been a privilege and pleasure to work alongside with him. And, I've learned a lot, and I gained a friend. So, I want to wish you well in your new endeavors and where, life is going to lead you. You take care, my friend.
Thanks, Art. Anybody else?
Well, sure. I'll join in the happy club here, too. I've known Robert since 1980, when he first started at the bus company, and have valued the relationship and the friendship over all those years. And I'm disappointed too that because I think he added a financial acumen to the discussion that helped the entire board.
Anybody else? Yep. Well, I guess I want to, also thank Robert for his time and energy on the board, and I'm definitely gonna miss his, as you stated, Roger, his financial acumen, and hopefully we're able to fill that gap. And I do want to say I really appreciated the spirited dialogue that Robert and I have had on several issues, and for that matter with all the board. But I think that's what makes this a good board, that we don't all agree on everything, but we all are trying to work towards the same goal of making this a good project. So with that said, I appreciate everything Robert has done for this board and wish him well. Any other comments?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, and
I can't be the only one not to say anything. So yes, I appreciate the work as well. And what was really different about Robert is that he actually filled the position of the CFO in the past on the Heart staff. So it was really beneficial to have that background and knowledge come forth at the board level for us. So thank you, Robert, and continued success to you.
Okay, thank you. He probably ducked out on purpose so he didn't have to be here to, but anyway, if there's no other further business, I want to adjourn this meeting of the Heart Board at 11:08. Thank you. Appreciate it.